Folks, welcome back. This is another episode of Drama Quest. After the last episode, which was pretty brutal, very high drama, I figure this is a good time to drop a nice little palate cleanser. So this is an epic lore session once again. Today we were scheduled to talk about the Druid epic, but while I was doing the research for the Druid epic, I was like, wait a second, this is just the Ranger epic. And I realized that there's basically no way that we could talk about the Druid epic lore without also just talking about the Ranger epic lore. So it's sort of a 2-for-1, 1.5-for-1, because like 80% of the epic quest for the Druid and the Ranger are identical. So we're going to go through that today. Before we jump in, I want to thank our newest patrons. First, we have an anonymous patron who doesn't want me to mention their name, but thank you anyway. We've got the big Clucifer, the ever-famous Destro, and our friend Raja. Thank you guys for supporting the podcast. It means a lot. But with that said, let's jump in. This is our handy-dandy secondary lore guide, but for the most part, this one didn't do a lot for us this time. Like I said, some of the epic quests, this has a lot of detail, provides a huge backstory for the epic weapons themselves. But in this case, this just sort of retells the story of the epic quest in a sort of narrative format, borrowing some of the characters from the game itself to help do that. So we'll go through it. I'll actually, read the little blurb it has about the Nature Walker Scimitar and the Ranger epic for you guys. But you'll see as we do it that it kind of is just a rehash. So nothing too crazy there. Now, before we, go through the nitty gritty of this, let's just talk about the general scope of this. The idea behind these two epics is that there is a balance that is maintained in nature, kind of like what we talked about with the Cleric epic, right? Where there was a balance between the elements of like fire and water and stuff like that. So there's a balance in nature, and the balance is broken. There's a corruption spreading through the forests and poisoning, diseasing. I don't know what you would say the right word is. I'm sure diseasing is not the right word, though. Spreading a disease amongst the creatures of Norath. And the epic is really the story of you getting to the bottom of it, discovering what's happened, and then finding a way to stop it. So that's really what it comes down to. Now, for both classes, this starts with meeting Tellan Darkforest out in Kunark in the Burning Woods. You meet him, and he looks at you serenely and saying, "Hello, Wanderer." You say, "Hey, what are you doing out here?" It's relatively uncommon to see a non-Ixar or Sarnak out in the Burning Woods. And he says, "Mighty this place must have been once. Now it's scarred by hatred and suffering. I've been sent here seeking answers to problems not yet understood." What answers are you looking for? He looks at you for a few minutes and then speaks and says, "A great evil walks across the land, the hand of some demon. We don't know yet what is twisting and polluting the forests." And you ask him about, what is the evil? He says, "If I knew that, I wouldn't be here looking for answers. I'd be elsewhere looking for solutions. For now, I suspect much, but I know little." And you're like, "Come on, Tellan, why are you being so difficult about this thing? Just tell us what's going on, dude." And so you say, "Come on, what do you suspect?" And he sighs. "Okay, Tellan, thanks. The lands are changing. Beasts, large and small, have turned upon those who watched over them. Druids and rangers, worshippers of both Karana and Tunair, not Tunare, have reported a feeling of hatred throughout their once peaceful lands." And then you are left at that point to kind of just guess trigger words that might prompt him. Perhaps there was something that led you to the right answer back in the old days, but I couldn't find out where else in the world you would find it. But there's probably a clue somewhere. But anyway, the next thing that would create the correct prompt when you're talking to him would be to mention Inaruk. So if you say, "Perhaps it's Inaruk," or "Maybe it was Inaruk," he'll raise his eyebrows slightly, and a subtle look of surprise creeps across his face. "Inaruk? Perhaps. It must be. Perhaps I knew and didn't want to consider the possibility. It must be this, though, and some action will have to be taken." Then you say, "What action must be taken?" And then he considers you for a bit and scribbles something down quickly on a small, worn piece of paper. "You seem powerful enough. Perhaps you can help those who seek to protect nature's peace. Take this note. Deliver it only to the hands of Phelan Bloodbriar. Where you will find her, I cannot say. Thanks, Tellan. Appreciate that. She's somewhere out there on the planet. Just find this one person. She's a friend of mine and a wanderer. She has been seen from one end of the land to the other. Seek her out quickly." So you get a warn note. And of course, you find Phelan. She could be anywhere in the world. This wanderer who goes all over the place. Well, she's actually just in Greater Fadark, hanging out near Crushbone. So convenient. No doubt you would, if you're doing this quest back in the day, noobs would have seen her and been like, who's this new NPC? So you go to her, you give her the note. She reads the note carefully and growls to herself. Bad news, huh? Take this ring. There's one elf, a dark elf even, who we must find in order to gain insight into Inaruk's plans. Giz Ixtin, he goes by most commonly. Kithakor seems to be his favorite haunt, and you'll most likely find him there. Don't ask how I know him. Just take the ring as my sign to him, and he will speak to you. We don't need to speak again, so don't seek me out. Just go to Telyn. I must leave to go investigate these events. So you get the ring from Phelan, and you go all the way to Kithakor Forest and find Giz Ixtin. He flips a coin after he recognizes the ring that you hand him. It seems we have a mutual acquaintance. The coin repays an old debt. You don't have to worry about what that is. Luckily, Lord Inaruk has informed me of your coming and your desires. So I guess we're confirming it's Inaruk now. Fortunately, I have all the answers you require right here at the end of my friend's blade. I think I'll be paying my old friend a visit. So then he attacks you, right? You kill him, and you've got a dark metal coin from him. And when you kill him, he has a special shout. Though technically, I think for the quest, you could just like run away from him. But if you kill him, what you're supposed to do, he says, Lord Inaruk, I have failed you. Forgive me and spare me from service to your undead minions in this world. A little peek at a part later in the quest. So you go back to Telyn and give him the coin. Because remember, Phelan said, don't come back and see me. We don't need to talk again. It's strictly a game design note, I think, so that you don't give her the item. So you go back to Telyn and give him the coin. He scratches the coin as he looks at it. Phelan sent you to Giz, huh? Surprising. This coin speaks to the outcome of your talk. He would hardly give this bit of metal to a stranger, but that's a story for another time. So you say Giz did confirm Inaruk's involvement. Well, I suppose in a manner of speaking he did, yes, after he tried to kill me. And something about undead minions. Here, take this coin back. Find Archdruid Altheli in the Karanas and show her that. Tell her what we've discussed. She will look kindly on an ally in this matter. So he gives you back that worn dark metal coin. And you go to East Karana and you can find this druid named Altheli. You talk to her, she says, hello, friend. Beautiful is what I would call such a day normally, but lately I sense that something is out of balance. You say, what's out of balance? I sense something foreboding, young one, but you should think nothing of it. The sons and daughters of nature will be able to deal with this problem. So if you give her the coin, she will look at the coin and then nod gravely at you as she slips it into the folds of her clothing. I see. The story of this coin speaks much to me, as do words you have given me. Telyn sent word that you would arrive. The tidings you bring are ill indeed. Here, take this amulet and find Siane. She's nearby. We will speak more on the matter when all are present. So this braided grass amulet that she gives you is actually a token of gathering. If you like cast Identifier, I think now you can just look at the lore tab. You'll see it's called a token of gathering. But basically now you run around East Karana and you find all these druids and rangers. You give them the token of gathering to indicate to them that they should come to the appointed place of meeting, which I think is like a pre-established thing they have. And then eventually, when you're done, everyone will path to this one spot, and the meeting begins with you getting to be there to like observe. So we'll skip to that point. We won't walk through, meeting all four of these folks. Altheli says, "Great mother of life and father of sky, growth and spirit, Tunair and Karana, Inaruk once again schemes, and we have failed in our duties to protect our land. We give our powers in sacrifice for your help. Heed our call and send us your wisdom." It's weird that Altheli feels bad here. She says like, "Hey, we failed." I mean, like, you're dealing with like a god who takes very direct intervention all the time, so you can hardly be blamed, in my opinion, for being like a normal person who fails to stop Inaruk, right? Like, it's not like Karana and Tunair are jumping down, messing with things. So anyway, they do a little ritual here. And then after the end of the ritual, suddenly Altheli like turns towards you and says, "Inaruk's brood is upon us. Go find the spawn of hatred before they reach this point and destroy them." So some dark elf corruptors have spawned, and they're shouting, "Hey, we're coming for you, fools. Your reign of weakness over the powers of the land come to an end now." And basically you have to go and find them and kill them before they reach the ritual site. And when you kill them, you loot a flesh-bound tome, which you return to Altheli. Altheli hands the book to to Thulris, one of the other people who came to the meeting, who reads it with lines of concern etched on his face, then whispers into her ear, "Dire news indeed. This cannot be allowed. I must keep this book, but you, character name, must not allow Inaruk to seed the land with his hatred and filth. You've only just begun your quest. The path you're guided upon will be difficult, if not impossible, but someone must finish it. Please take this, read of it, follow its instructions. Tunair bless your path, and Karana watch over you." She gives you an earth-stained note. And the note, not super informative. Here's what it says. "We cannot speak again. Our circle is now known and must seek sanctuary. In case this note were to fall into others' hands, I cannot tell you plainly the next steps of your tasks. All I can say is to seek she who walks the path of the mother, she who walks the land in service to her kin. Give her this note and she will know." So you guys have like 5 seconds here to guess who this person is based on that. And imagine if you were doing this, without an ALA guide, way back in the day, trying to find this person, especially with the idea that when you give someone the note, there's a chance they just eat it and you have to redo that whole leg of the quest to start this over. But the person is, of course, none other than Ella Foodcrafter, the halfling who runs up and down Misty Thicket from the wall to the starting zone area. So you go to her and you say, hi, and you hail her. She says, hi, I've got a lot to do, many mouths to feed, some filthy goblins to smack. If you don't need me for something, please let me get back to my work. Karana watch over you. I think that's pretty much your hint there is like, Karana watch over you. She's always running back and forth, feeding people. But you give her the note. She says, I've been waiting for someone to bring me this. I honestly, I don't know. It's questionable. It's questionable to me, right? Like, why she reads this note, which we've already read and we know doesn't say anything really at all. But she sees this and she knows what it means. "I'm sorry such a young one as you has taken up this task. Maybe the sky goddess blesses you, though. You have that look in your eye. Our task is to focus the blessings of the gods and cleanse the filth from the land. I have 2 tasks for you." Okay, so you have to focus the blessings of Karana and Tunair to cleanse the land. And there's 2 things that you need to do for Ella. You need to create a magical bowl and a special mixture. She says, "Well, you ask before you act. That's a good sign. What I need isn't easy to find. First, I need a mixture. Plain sounding enough, but it's a special one. Cleanses the mind and focuses the earth's energies into a forest walker's mind. I don't know how to make it. I don't even know what it's called. I merely know it exists and will be needing it for our task. When you do know how to make it, you can mix it in that bowl. Keep it when you're done. It's a good bowl." So you get a shiny tin bowl at this point. And you ask her, what's the other task? Because she said there was 2. I'm good. I'm glad you didn't run off without finding out what else you needed to do. Second, I need a special type of bowl, an ancient bowl, not the same shiny tin bowl you just got. We need a bowl which strengthens the food placed inside it, once made by the elves of old. Again, I cannot tell you how it's made, for the making was lost to the ages. Seek this knowledge and these items out in the lands. Come to me when you've found both. So right away, we know the first task is basically going to be a foraging task because, it's a druid ranger quest. It's just a matter of like, what are you trying to forage? And the second one, we know it was made by the elves of old. When you hear elves of old, that means high elf in EverQuest usually. And so you're left to go off on your adventure. The items that you need for the mixture are actually foraged in Everfrost Peaks, Misty Thicket, Inithul Swamp, and Greater Fadark. It's a chilled tundra root, a sweetened mud root, a speckled molded mushroom, and a ripened heart fruit. In that order. You could do it in any order, but previous to the order that I listed the zones. So then the bowl. The bowl is a bit more of a pain to get. Basically, you find Alric Farsight in Timorous Deep, and you can talk to him, and he says he's searching for ancient artifacts with Fizzlebick, another person on the island. And he says, all types of things. This area is great. So many artifacts and remains of things all over. I'm starting to fall into the pattern of things. And if you ask him about stuff, you can eventually get to where he talks about bowls. And he'll do a whole thing about a magical bowl that he has. And you want the bowl, or you want him to give you the means to make the bowl. And he agrees to do it, but only if you do some chores for him. First, he wants you to take an artifact back to Felwith and give it to Farios Elianos of the Keepers of the Art, which is like the caster guild in Felwith. This unlocks like a series of like little fetch quests that are kind of stupid, but it does give you a little bit of an enjoyable look at this. So remember, Ulrich is on an island in the middle of Timorous Deep, kind of with one other person. And if you think about it, it's kind of a shit job. When you go to this guy and bring an artifact to him, Farios says, what's this? A cracked earthen pot? Why in the nine hells would I need a crushed pot? Perhaps I could use it to not hold water. Why did you even bother me with this? Are you mentally deficient? Apparently. Oh, well, you're just a servant boy. Well then, we'll make you useful, if just a little. Take this shopping list and go get my groceries. So basically, through the course of this, you find out that Alric was sent by the Keepers of the Art to this island, basically just to waste time, to keep him away from Felwith, because he was seen as a nuisance. And he doesn't realize it because he's, he is Alric Farsight, and he doesn't consider those things. So they sent him off on this stupid task that would just keep him busy for years and years and years and keep him out of their hair. Anyway, you do a series of kind of menial fetch quests, and you eventually get the Ancient Bowl pattern. And then you realize, like, to make it, you're going to have to get a special kind of clay. To do that, you need to talk to a dwarf, Kinlo Strongarm. He only has a minor part in this particular epic, the Druid epic, but I think he's got a larger part in the Ranger epic. But Kinlo Strongarm is a dwarf who doesn't think very highly of elves or women, I think. And he reveals that as you talk to him. So you say, "Hail, Kinlo Strongarm." He says, "Mud, rock, crystals, gems, metals are." "What mud?" He says, "Oh, the clay. Yeah, lots of that mud around here. Mostly a good dwarf not be needing something so soft and squishy. But the women folk, the elves, come looking for it. If you be one of those pansy elves wanting some mud for working into fairy statues, flashy trinkets, and pig stickers, then I can get it for you. Of course, I'd be lowering myself, a good dwarf, to be digging that kind of mush out of the ground, but I can do it for you." Saying, "Okay, well, go ahead, do it." And he says, "Shut up, I'm not doing anything till you bring me something. A fee, I guess you'd call it, for lowering myself to elf woman work. Get me a good strong axe and I'll do it for you. Maybe something with a good tinted polish on it. I got plenty of axes, but no tinted ones. Har har. Colored axe. Something to go with the color left on the blade after I be cracking open a gobbo head." So he wants an axe, wants it to be tinted or colored. And the goblin thing is a hint too. The goblins around there are green, so he probably wants a green axe. Where do you get a green axe? Well, City of Mist, you can get a Jade Reaver. So go get a Jade Reaver and bring it back to him. He says, "Yeah, now that's what I'd be calling a good-looking axe. I'd be cracking a few skulls with this one. Oh, here's your block of mud." This is the best part. "Our priests Sobrel use the mud pit for relieving themselves after really hard ale blessing ceremonies. So you ain't got to be worried about enchanting it in holy water or anything, because they already have. Har har." So you get this enchanted clay. It's identified as Dwarven Holy Clay, which is great. Now you need to get speckled, platinum speckled powder. This part of the quest is another part that I think part of it was like lost in terms of like how it was figured out. So if you know this really well, maybe you've done the Druid Epic a million times, feel free to like leave me a comment or message me some details on this part, because I couldn't figure it out, but we'll walk through it. Now, I mean, like, I know the sequence of the quest, but I couldn't figure out one part, and I'll touch on that. So you talk to Murden Fleetfoot, and he says, "Yes, Nira. Oh, hi. I mean, how are you?" And you're like, "Nira? Who's Nira?" He blushes. He says, "She's, I don't know. I haven't been able to speak with her. She has many suitors, and I'm just another poor ranger. I spend my days pretending to fish, to carve bows, but really, I'm just watching to catch a glimpse of her. I thought about adventuring into the world to find some kind of token to give her, to show her how I feel, but I can't tear myself away from here." So what you're supposed to do is find a rose for him, a rose of Furiona Infernovi, and bring it back to him. You give it to him, and he says, "This is perfect. Thanks. I'm going to go over to her now." Or, well, maybe I'll wait a week to let the beauty of the flower blossom. "Yeah, that sounds good. Here, you could have this painting. I don't need it now. I made it myself. She wouldn't like it anyway." So you see, you get a wooden painting, and it's probably we don't know the contents of the painting, but it's a painting for this woman Niera, and it's likely a painting of her, I would guess. Now, why do we care about Niera in the first place? Like, what is this whole thing about? Niera is noted as having a locket on her with platinum speckled clay or powder in it. So really, you're trying to find a way to get her to give you this pendant. you take the painting that he gives you and you give it to a human skeleton wandering in the frontier mountains, and that skeleton will collapse into dust and give you a silver chained locket, which identifies as Neria's locket. When you do this, so the gist here, and this is the part I am a little bit confused on, is this human skeleton is supposed to be Neria's mother, as far as I can tell. And by giving her this painting, you have freed her soul from undeath, and she gives you a locket that belonged to Neria. Neria has this thing that you need, right? This powder, but she wears it, and it was a gift from her mother while her mother was still alive. So it's really precious to her, so she won't give it to you, right? Like when you interact with Neria, here's how it goes. If you're just around her ambiently, she does like a little text drop, right? Neria Farbreeze hums softly a little tune that tickles the back of your mind, but you can't quite recall it. And you say, "What are you humming?" "Oh, just a little song my mother taught me when I was young. It speaks of the earth, the sky, and the sparkling stars above. Always there." And you say, "Always there?" She says, "Aye, always there, like the small bag I wear around my neck, the last gift of my dying mother. It holds a fine dust, a dust she collected during her short life, that she believed brought her luck. It's speckled, flecked as the night sky is with stars." I don't know why you would ever have like such a strange conversation. Why would you ever just be like, "Oh yeah, my dead mom taught me this poem right before she gave me like this necklace that has this really particular type of dust." No one does that. Anyway, you say, "Where can I find platinum speckled powder?" She said, "I've had this little bit of dust, all I have of my mother, for many years now. It's the only reminder I have of her. She said it was special, magical, a warmth to help me through the nights. Even if my life were in the balance, I would have a hard time giving it up." And you say, like, "Hey, but would you give it to me?" "Of course you won't give it to you." She stares at you with flames in her eyes. "Did you hear everything I just told you? There's no way I would let go of this pouch. You find me another reminder and maybe I'll let it go. Not until then. Good luck doing that. The last anyone saw of my mother, she was exploring the blasted wastes of this newly discovered land." So you can find out, basically from that her mom is on Kunark somewhere. But why would you know it was a skeleton, right? What is there to indicate that? And why would you know that it was this painting that you were supposed to give the mom? I guess the fact that this dude is like the only other quest involving Neria right there would indicate it's somehow related. But I'm just interested. I feel like there's a piece missing to all this that was probably part of like the discovery process of how to do the epic. And now that we know the steps, we don't have to bother with it, and we just kind of skip it. So when you give her the locket that you got from the skeleton, that happened when you gave her the painting that you got from the guy who wanted the rose, she says, This is my mother's amulet. I can't believe it. Please, you can have the powder you say you need. Perhaps it does have powers. I don't know. I don't care. Thank you. My eternal thanks for this." So then you go back to Misty Thicket. You give her the hardened mixture and the rune-crested bowl that you can now craft, right? And she smiles slowly as she works the mixture in the bowl, and it starts to shine with power. This is a piece of a lost magic item known as Nature's Gem. When restored to completeness, I've heard its healing powers will be extraordinary. Take it now. I'll take the bowl and hopefully do some good from my end. From here, you can go many ways, but I can't guide your path step by step. The only advice I can give is that you should look for ones such as yourself. So you're looking for like other rangers or druids. And she gives you a softly glowing stone, which identifies as the left half of nature's balance. Eventually, you are supposed to find Falol Stormforest in Feronovi. This is the person that is the one such as yourself. So you talk to Falol, and he'll stare at you and whisper, you must be the one that has been spoken of. Yes, I am one of the circle. There are many of us in the lands right now, all seeking answers to the ills that have befallen our homes. You say, what answers? I've heard whispers of new Ixar movements in the land. The name of Venril Sathir is on the scaled lips and sharp tongues of every cold-blooded lizard in this place. You ask him, who's Venril Sathir? He says, all I've heard are whispers of connections between the undead lizards and the dark god of hate. There's some kind of history between the two. It might be that Venril is the main focus of Inaruk's will in the land. Then again, maybe not. But this is the best we've gotten so far. If you think you can do it, then find him and remove him from the face of this earth. Bring me the half of the stone I know you have, and whatever conduit of power you find on his rotting corpse. So now you have to go kill this basically a legendary figure in Norathian history who is indeed tightly bound to Inarok. Quick backstory, really quick. It's not part of the epic, but it is important to understand this. Inarok was given the secret to lichdom, to the ritual that he was doing to live forever. Or Veneral Sathir was given that secret by Inarok. He's actually had a lot of random interactions with the gods. Like, not only did he have that interaction with Inarok, where he learned how to live forever and become a lich, but he also met Zabuxaruk, the god that is imprisoned in a plane of time. And Zabuxaruk gave him the unholy writ of war, which is what empowered him to unite the Ixar tribes, because Veneral Sathir, of course, was the guy who united all the disparate tribes of Ixar way back in the day to create what would become the Sebelesian Empire. Now, he was trying to live forever. He was doing a ritual, and while he was doing the ritual that would allow him to become a lich and basically be an eternal king, his son, Ryle Sathir, busted in and was like, no. So he interrupted the ritual and stopped it from happening. Obviously, he did this because, like, no prince wants to wait forever to be king. Like, an eternal king is a nightmare if you're the son of the king. So Ixar history continues on for hundreds of years, and then later the Sarnak find the tomb of Veneral Sathir, the place where the ceremony was underway, and they finish the ceremony, and they transfer his soul from the phylactery to the body of his son, nonetheless, Ryle Sathir. So when you see VS in game, he's actually the spirit of Veneral, but in the body of his son, Ryle Sathir. And that is the sort of backstory, his connection to Inarok in all this. But you go and you defeat Veneral Sathir with an army of your friends, and you loot a pulsing green stone. So you head back to Falol Storm Forest, and you give him the softly glowing stone and the pulsing green stone, which is the left and right stones of the Nature's Gem. And he blinks and carefully takes the stones from you, cautiously scratching the jagged green stone against the other. Its skin seems to shiver and flake at the contact. Eventually, it begins to shine brightly. With the gem Nature's balance, with that, the gem Nature's balance is complete. Take the stone and walk your path. A blade or lightning collar, burning sword, or the mother's walk. You get a warmly glowing stone. Now, this is where the epic for the ranger and the druid diverge. Up to this point, if you were a druid or a ranger, your epic was 100% the same. You did all of this stuff. So it's like the majority of the epic has been done identically. Now you got the stone, and you take it to one of two places. If you're a druid, you take it to Ella Foodcrafter, and Ella will say, she'll hand you a scimitar that she usually wears, and she says, "Thank you. With this, we can hold back the corruption. We've learned something new, though. Not only is this work the responsibility of the Lord of Hatred alone, for some reason we cannot know. The Lord of Disease has decided it is worthy of his time to work in conjunction with Inarok." So I think that's Bertoxilus. The spirits of the three main continents, Faedwer, Antonica, and Kunark, have been corrupted. Look for the corrupted forces of the land and heal them. When you found them all, take my scimitar and spirits to Zanusis. Zanusis is a leader amongst the Trents out in the Karanas. So basically what you do now is you have to find a way to cleanse all these spirits that have been corrupted around the world. There's a few in each continent. The first thing that you would do is you would talk to the Pained Unicorn in Lesser Faedark and have a little conversation with it. It would say, you would see it. It snorts, it stamps at the ground. An unusual angry glimmer enters the eyes of what should be one of Tunair's most peaceful creatures. Its coat seems slickened and filthy in places. The Pained Unicorn tosses its head back, drool falling from its mouth. The priest of the sick channel filth and sickness into the lands. Too late did we notice to stop them. You can, though, here, in the ocean and underwater city of the old. Go to those places and find the corruptions. Bring them to me. So here is the corrupted brownie in Lesser Faedark, the same zone as the Pained Unicorn. In the ocean is the corrupted Sea Fury Cyclops in the Ocean of Tears, and the corrupted Seahorse in Ketchkeep. So you go get them, you kill them, and cleanse their spirits, and then bring it back to the Pained Unicorn. And the Pained Unicorn will give you its horn, a symbol of Faedwer, now cleansed. And you have to find the person who caused all this, which was a gnomish priest that is hiding near the guild House of the Dark Reflection in Acheron. You give him the gleaming horn, and it weakens him, and then you kill him. His name is Silox Azrix, and other than that, there's not really anything notable there. Then you do the same thing. You cleanse the spirit of Antonica. You talk to a withered Trent. Its bark is all falling off, and he says agents of some dark god are twisting the lands and their creatures. And he gives you the heart of his what is it called? His withered Trent heart, and you cleanse the corrupted mammoth in Everfrost Peaks. You cleanse a tainted aqua goblin in the waters of Lake Wrath, and a corrupted hill giant. Then you take it back to him. You get his. That's when you get the warm pulsing Trent heart, and you have to kill Yeka Yas in South Karana. Same thing. You give him this heart, and it weakens him, and then you kill him, and boom, it's cleansed. Now, for the part of Kunark, this one a little bit worse. You have to kill Ulap Pajulak, who is a froglock that is stuck in like this disgusting muck, and he tells you that Kunark is being corrupted as well. And he says, to free him, you basically just have to kill him. So you fight him, kill him, then you have to deal with a corrupted gorilla, a corrupted barracuda, and finally Fadadar. Fadadar has been corrupted by the actions of Inruk and perhaps Bertoxilus. So you defeat him, and the pot of water is evidence of you having cleansed his spirit. Then you take all of these items that you have done, all the cleansing that you've done with the Scimitar, and you take it to Xanusis out in North Karana. Xanusis says, "Greetings, small one. I am Xanusis of the Storm Reapers. You are welcome to rest beneath my mighty branches." If you give it the Scimitar and the 3 final cleansed spirits of the continents, Xanusis pushes the spirits into the air, making them dance around the Scimitar. With the wave of his hand, they melt into the blade and hilt of the weapon. With this, the spirits of the land are now free from the corruption of the dark gods. Through your strength and dedication was this possible. May the foul poison that once poured into the earth itself never do so again. Take this weapon, that you may continue to watch over the balance of nature. Go now, the gods' blessings. And that is it. You get the Nature Walker's Scimitar and the title Nature Walker. So that's the Druid epic. Now, the Ranger epic takes that slight deviation. When you kill Veneral Sathir and you get the warmly glowing stone, which is the both pieces of the Nature's Gemstone merged, instead of taking it to Ella Foodcrafter, you take it to Talon Darkforest, the person who began this whole quest with you in the Burning Woods. So you hand it to him, and he nods as he unbuckles his own sword and hands it to you. The Stormcallers are working on containing and fighting against the corruption, but they cannot hold back the inevitable for long. It's up to us to strike against Inruk directly. If we were warriors or paladins, we would have a fancy ceremony and plenty of feasting, but we're just rangers, without time or pleasantries. The sword you hold in your hands is one of the oldest blades known, even to the eldest. To strike at the darkest heart of evil requires a weapon beyond this, or even ones you may carry at your side. The first task, the first preparation you must make, is the smithing of that blade. Its edge sharpened, its balance made perfect. When you have finished, bring me this sword again. He gives you an ancient longsword, which the lore shows as a finely crafted longsword. So now you go back to that dwarf that got you the piss mud from Caladim. That's Kinlo's Strongarm, and you talk to him about the sword and what you would need to empower it. And he says the ancient smiths are what you would need for what you're asking about, and they haven't been around for a long time, laddie. Last anyone heard of the ancients was for my time even. There'd be more than a few tales about them. You're like, okay, well, what are the tales? And Kinlo says, there be some who talk about how the ancient smiths went down to work for the Duke of Below, that's Brel Ceralis, saying he needed some fine dwarven smiths to make some castle or some such. There be tales that the ancients were so good at smithing that the Duke took them down and made them head smiths over his minions. There's even tales that some of the smiths' souls were trapped in their hammers, stuck there by some necromancer, as punishment or retribution. And you say, well, what hammers? He says, some say their souls were bound into their hammers by an erudite necromancer and enchanter. They say they used the power of the hammers to profit by making ships, boats, and houses better than any other merchants. Sad tale, if it's true. You ask about the necromancer, and he says, I don't know anything more about the story, lad. Everything I know is already in what I said. Aye, erudites. I suppose if you're wanting to run after Shortbeard, Tails, you can look over on that plague island they call Otis. So we've had a hint here, basically about what to do, right? We were told first of a story that they were taken by the Duke of Below, Brel, to build a castle, and that they were left to stay there over his minions, and that they were then taken and stored into a hammer, their own hammers, by an erudite. Well, this points us pretty directly at the hole, right? Because the hole has a door that connects to the underfoot, the realm of Brel. And the hole is now populated by Brel's minions. And it is also, the closest place to erudites, especially erudite necromancers. So you go to the hole, and you'll eventually find Jael the Wretched. You have to give him that shiny tin bowl that you got a while ago from Ella Foodcrafter, and he'll see his reflection. And when he sees it, he howls in anger and attacks you. If you kill him, you'll get a soul-bound hammer. So if you take that hammer back to Kinlo, the dwarf from Caladim, he examines the hammer respectfully, admiring its craftsmanship. He strikes it against the anvil and winces as a howl fills the air. This is one of the ancient's hammers. I can almost hear it calling to me. It's strong, that's for sure, lad. I don't know how you got it, but I, a dwarf, could make a mighty blade with this. It's looking like this thing still has its owner inside it, though. I don't know how. I don't want to know. But for your own good, you better find some way to get him out. So you get the hammer back, and basically you have to research how to free this soul that is trapped in the hammer and get this ancient dwarf smith out of it. Going back to Eredin would make sense because the person who did this was an erudite. So where do we go? We go either to the palace in Eredin, or you would go to the library of Eredin. Eventually, you will find Mary Silent One. And you ask her about the ancient hammer. She says she has heard something about the ancient hammers, and she asks if she can take a look at it. So you give her the soul-bound hammer, and she makes a few marks on the hammer while you hear some muffled cursing coming from the head of the hammer. Yes, this is an ancient dwarf's hammer. Interesting artifact. I've marked it to keep it stable while you retrieve something for me. You need to travel to the plane of sky and find a swirling sphere of color. Bring it and the hammer back to me. So the swirling sphere of color drops from Pegasus Island in Plane of Sky. It drops from an Essence Tamer specifically, I think, which is kind of cool if you think about it because you're trying to pull the essence of this dwarf out of this, so sort of makes sense. You bring it back to her, and she holds the sphere and makes intricate marks on it and turns the entire crystal clear. She rolls it across the hammer, raising a ringing sound in the room. There, now take the hammer back to Kinlo. He'll know what to do from here. Good luck. So you still haven't freed the spirit of this dwarf, but something seems different. You take it back to Caladim, and you give it to him, and he takes the hammer and nods once before slamming the head of this hammer against his anvil, shattering it. In a cloud of dust, another dwarf appears from the cloud and tosses you a hunk of metal. Kinlo stares in awe. Oozback the Old gives you a small bit of mithril ore. He says, took you long enough. You'd think you had an orc head on them shoulders there. I'm owing you for helping, though, else I'd have been on that darn hammer for ages. You said you had an ancient blade or something to be smithing. If so, let me see it. So you give him the old ancient longsword that you have from Tellin, and he returns you a refined ancient sword, which identifies as sword to show Tellin. So there you go. You take that sword back to Tellin in the Burning Woods, and he smiles slowly. Now that's fine work. Just a moment. We have a friend here who can enchant one of the blades. Give her the blade, the ancient smith. Phelan appears. You remember Phelan from the beginning of this quest. Phelan says, didn't think I was gone for good, did you? We're that much closer to finishing this trial of our strength, thanks to you. You give her the refined ancient sword, and she enchants it and returns it to you. She smiles at you, then closes her eyes as she sets the gem Nature's Balance into the crossguard and begins to channel her spirit into the sword. My mouth hurts from reading all this. Oh, goodness. The ground rumbles loudly as she casts. She collapses in exhaustion after a short time. Take the blade, and perhaps you can finish this. You must strike at Inaruk's heart. Bring his shattered gem and the mithril blade to Xenusis. Only with Inaruk's death can the balance of the land once again be restored. If we do not meet again, remember, you always have my eternal thanks. So now, just a small little thing after destroying the ancient Ixar Lich that had planned to conquer Kunark and eventually the rest of the world, you then have to follow it up by killing the literal god of hate and the progenitor of all dark elves. So, a small task, no doubt. you get the sword Swiftwind, though, for your troubles, which is the first half of the Ranger epic. Now you go to Plane of Hate, and you have to get a Shattered Emerald of Corruption. Nowadays, they drop from all the minis as well, but I think maybe originally they only dropped from Inneruk. Either way, for the sake of the plot, we're going to say that you go up there with your friends and you kill the God of Hate, and you get a Shattered Emerald of Corruption, ending the corruption that was happening around the world. Kind of makes me wonder if the Druid was really successful. I feel like the Druid cleansed the corruption, but it would have kept happening if the Ranger counterpart hadn't killed Inneruk to stop the ability to corrupt. But then you take that to Zanusis, our good Trent friend, in Khurana, and you give him the refined Mithril Blade and a Shattered Emerald of Corruption, and he does his thing. Zanusis waves his hand over the Gem of Corruption, and a wave of warm energy passes through the area. With care for such a huge creature, he melts the gem into the sword and seems to glow all over as he channels energy into the weapon. Thus is the link of hate broken between Inneruk and the Spirit of Earth. Through your will has balance been restored. Your deeds, your work for the good of all, will be remembered by anyone who walks beneath the canopy of a forest or roams the plains. Continue your vigil over nature's balance. Boom. You have now received Earthcrafter and Swiftwind, the Ranger epic. Congratulations. But lastly, we have to talk about what it says in the GM guide for the tabletop RPG version of EverQuest. So here's our story, and it's basically a rehash. The story of the Nature Walker's Scimitar cannot be told without also retelling the tale of the Twin Blades, Swiftwind, and Earthcaller. All three were created to defend against an enemy that sought to unbalance the delicate threads of nature. While the scimitar exists as a symbol of nature's perfect harmony, Swiftwind and Earthcaller were crafted as a tribute to the prowess and bravery required to maintain that perfect balance between good and evil, dark and light, natural and unnatural. Phelan Bloodbriar was the first bearer of the Nature Walker's Scimitar, and her dedication to druidic ways has ensured her a place in legend for ages to come. Born in Kelethin, the fair wood elf was blessed with an unquestionable purity and innocence, as had every member of her family before her. She followed the path of the druid, learning the customs of her ancestors and upholding the tenets of the ancient ways. With her increasing knowledge and wisdom came the desire to see and understand more of the world, and Phelan's wanderlust took her to the furthest regions of Norath. Once she had mastered the ways of druidic ring travel, she eventually made her way to the newly discovered lands of Kunark. Here she roamed, documenting her findings, and always gaining in wisdom as she encountered new places and people. Sometime into her journey, however, a nagging doubt grew in her mind. Things were not as they should be in the world. First began the nightmares, images of disease and famine, rot and filth. With each step, she could feel the earth beneath her feet groaning and throbbing with the pain of a fresh wound. The plants themselves shuddered at her touch, and the animals of the forest cast weary glances at even her gentle presence. Concern swirled in her heart, and darkening her mind, and pushed her further into the unknown lands of Kunark, always seeking answers to her fears. Her wanderings soon brought her to a wood, ever burning with a magical fire. Not since her first horrified sight of the darkened Kithgor forest had she felt such revulsion. Here, on the edge of the cursed forest, she sat upon the ground and wept, the smoke from these fires invading her senses. She wrapped her arms about her own shoulders and rocked, but a gentle voice soon awakened her from her anguish. "Hello, gentle wanderer," it said, in tones of sympathy and grief. Talon Darkforest, warrior and ranger of Surefall Glade, knelt beside her, and together they shared a profound anguish. Talon's order had also felt the threads of balance quivering, and had dispatched him to find the source. His intuition had brought him through the Dreadlands, where he spotted the black smoke, undulating from the north. Following the warnings in his heart, he came to the edge of the woods, only to find Phelan weeping there. The two immediately became fast companions, sensing a kinship of spirits, and together they journeyed the lands in search of answers to the restless feelings that roiled within them both. They discovered many examples of this discord, yet failed to uncover the root of the corruption. Even the shining unicorn they encountered in the forests of Fadark looked upon them with wary eyes and a smudged coat. The priests of hate have sickened us with this affliction, it stated. Indeed, Inneruk proved the source of much discontent in the world of Norath. Neither of the travelers was surprised to learn that the Prince of Hate was behind this new taint. and that he had crept into the lands like a thief in the night. Soul after soul they encountered, each had been tainted with Inruk's affliction. One at a time, they cleansed these beings, Phelan binding each purified essence to her own soul before the corruption could return, bearing a great burden to ensure the safety of the others. Word reached the ears of many that a druid and her ranger companion were traveling Norath, restoring the balance, and soon Telyn and Phelan were summoned to the plains of the Kharanas to join with their brothers and sisters in seeking a defense against the defilement. Brought before Zanussis, an ancient, wizened Trent, Phelan offered up as a mute testimony the cleansed spirits she had tied so carefully, so painfully to her own. Zanussis accepted the bonds of souls solemnly. He manipulated the essences until they swirled around Phelan's blade, melting into the smooth metal of her faithful scimitar. Fueling his magics with her dedication and bravery, and Zanussis caused... Fueling his magics with her dedication and bravery, and Zanussis caused Phelan's weapons to be enchanted and blessed with the essential purity of the cleansed souls. I'm reading it as it's written. It feels a little clunky to me in this sentence. I apologize. In this way, the Nature Walker's scimitar was created, and the wise Zanussis then pronounced a quest for the heroic druid. Phelan would venture into the very heart of Inruk's realm. Telyn drew his blades and saluted the ancient being, and then offered his life and his swords in service to Phelan. Wherever she traveled, Telyn would surely follow. Zanussis smiled and nodded sagely, then gripped Telyn's blades in his immense oaken hands. The Trent closed his eyes and summoned forth a great energy. The earth beneath them shook, and the birds exploded from their trees in a flurry of squawks and shrieks. Telyn remained kneeling, his eyes wide in awe, as the Trent began to channel its energy into the blades. Lightning burst forth from the sky in great forks, and great winds sheared towards the blades. Then, as swiftly as the storm had begun, the black clouds departed. And Zanussis' great shoulders, slumping in weariness, handed the now sizzling blades back to Telyn. The link of hate forged by Inruk himself between the Earth's spirit and his power must be broken. Phelan's knowledge of such links of the spirit, such as now empower the blade she bears, will serve you both well. Okay. Phelan's knowledge of such links of the spirit, such as now empower the blade she bears, will serve you both well. I get that. Yeah, makes sense. By will and by blade, the balance must be restored. May your deeds be remembered and honored by generations to come. So basically, they're at the part where they have to go to Plane of Hate, right? Phelan and Telyn thus led a force of druids and rangers into the very Plane of Hate, seeking that corrupted link for which Zanussis had spoken. Foe after foe fell as Telyn waded through Inruk's agents, his newly enchanted blades flickering and flaring with each kill. And always within arm's reach stood Phelan, fending off the enemy with her own skill and magic, as her scimitar glowed with the green light of purified souls. For days they battled, until the link itself was discovered. The shattered emerald of corruption had allowed Inruk to pierce through the veil of his own plane and taint the souls of unsuspecting adventurers. Having lured them through the promises of power, the Lord of Hate brought the deceived souls down one after the other, trapping each within its own corruption, until Phelan came with her benevolent cleansings. Then, once the emerald itself was in their possession, Telyn struck it with a mighty blow, shattering it into 1,000 pieces. The link was severed, and the great army of Balance withdrew from Inruk's realm, leaving the corpses of his minions strewn there as a warning from Tunair's children. Telyn and Phelan returned home with a sense of relief, and returned their enchanted weapons to Zanussis. Now that the tainted link was forever removed from Norath, they spent their days wandering the land and enjoying the fruits of their great labors. Some speculate that Zanussis hid the blades away, knowing that only the worthy would be able to uncover them, should the need arise, to use them to preserve nature and the natural balance of all living things once again. So there you have it, folks. That is our story of the Ranger and Druid epic double feature. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a nice long one, I think, as far as the epic series go. These are usually about 30 minutes, and it looks like we're getting about 50 minutes out of it. So again, thank you. I hope you enjoyed the lore. We got a few more lore episodes coming up in the future, and I think tonight I'm also recording the Mangler TLP history with Mesozoic, so that'll be out soon as well. In any event, thank you all. Drama Quest is out.